Now, I love to listen to true crime videos, campfire stories, and podcasts about the strange, spooky, and sinister. Probably more than most, and definitely more than I should. But sometimes your noggin needs a break from all that. So, I decided to tell my own non-scary stories and share them here with all of you. Consider this your safe space to relax, listen, learn, and maybe even drift off to sleep. So settle in, wind down, and cuddle up, and welcome to Non-Crime Storytime. Welcome or welcome back. Come on in, get comfy. You can close your eyes if you want. And let me tell you a story. This one's called Granny Basketball. Did you remember to bring your basketball shoes? The driver's eyes stayed on the road as she anticipated her passenger's answer. The passenger murmured with a slight head nod, her eyes gazing softly out the window. And your electrolyte mix? You gotta stay hydrated. And remember, you gotta keep your blood sugar up. The passenger hummed again. And you grabbed your extra socks, right? The yellow ones? Don't forget, there's 2 games today. They're back to back. The answer vibrated off the glass as the athlete turned her gaze to the passenger side window. Taking the cue to let her passenger focus, the mother kept both hands on the wheel and drove in silence until the 2 pulled up in front of the middle school gym, brakes squealing to a soft stop. I'm going to go park the car, but I'll meet you inside. Tell your coach about the pain in your wrist and make sure that you have water before you warm up for the game. And your shoes untied. Tie it before you run off to meet your friends. Already unbuckled and stepping out of the car, the athlete bent over to tie her well-worn sneakers as directed, then pulled something from her pocket and pushed it into her right ear. With a quick flick of her fingernail, the athlete's face lit up with a cheeky smile as she stood up to meet her daughter, who was still sitting behind the steering wheel. "What's that, dear? I didn't hear a word you said." The daughter half smiled at her mother's intentional but harmless sass, knowing deep down it was repayment for her own days as a tempestuous teenage athlete. "Mom, you've got to wear your hearing aid. I was talking to you the whole time." Her mother's eyes twinkled with amusement as she said, "I know. Thanks for the ride. See you in there." As the minivan door closed, the athlete's hand grabbed it just before it slammed shut. "Oh, and please don't sit too close to the bench this time. Coach said she'll throw you out again if she has to. Just please don't embarrass me." Before the daughter could answer, the closing door cut her off. The daughter closed her eyes with a small laugh, shaking her head, then smiled as she watched her mother scurry off to meet her friends and teammates, seamlessly joining in on their giggling and chanting, all of them bubbling over with infectious team spirit. Grabbing her megaphone, cowbell, and giant foam finger from the back seat, the daughter noticed her mother's basketball shoes still sitting neatly forgotten in the floorboard. The faint buzz of the gym scoreboard jolted her as she snatched up the sneakers and hustled off towards the gym, playfully huffing to herself, "Kids these days." And now, the rest of the story. The Granny Basketball League is an official women's basketball organization with more than 600 players, all above the age of 50, on 46 teams across 10 states and even a team in Canada. Founded in 2005 by Barb McPherson Trammell, Granny Basketball, from its very inception, looked to provide a way for, quote, women of a certain age, a safe, fun, and competitive form of exercise, as well as a way to create communities, foster friendships, and give back for the greater good. Upon writing his memoirs, Barb's father shared with her his many life stories. A women's basketball coach in the 1930s and 1940s in Iowa, her father told a tale of a game nearly forgotten and frozen in time: women's 6-on-6 basketball. He described a, quote, gentler game with its own unique set of rules. No physical contact, no running, no jumping allowed, and a focus on limited player exertion and risk of injury, not to mention a full coverage uniform to enforce modesty. Barb had her own cherished memories of her youth as a homegrown Iowa basketball player, but she was sure those days were long behind her. until now. Reading between the lines of the sport's original, now antiquated intentions, Barb was inspired to take this gentler game and revive it for a better cause and a different crowd, the crowd she herself belonged to. Because now in middle age, Barb was searching for something, and she knew she wasn't the only one looking. Something that reached further than a way to finally get some exercise, a hobby deeper than just something to do, something that brought greater excitement, drive, and purpose back into her life. And upon hearing her father's fond remembrance and life's dedication to women's 6-on-6 basketball, she was struck with inspiration to revive the sport, revive her lifestyle, and revive the community around her through the power of basketball. The Granny Basketball League is comprised of women of all kinds. Some have years of experience. Some had never thrown a pass before their first practice. Some are here for the competition. Some are here for the community. Some are freshly 50. One is about to turn 93. You'll see marathon runners and knee braces, and great-grandparents and empty nesters. The rulebook's got its quirks, but the league's arms are wide open. If you're willing to show up, break a sweat, and share the ball, you're in. While many players mention their need for exercise as one of their first motivators to join or start a team, most credit their fellow players, now their friends and sisters, as their main reason to keep playing. Some have played over 15 consecutive seasons in the league's 20-year history. Many players find themselves grappling with life's hardships as they enter middle age and beyond. The death of parents, spouses, or children, and sometimes their own battles with health and illness. And in these times, the team's support, teamwork, and unconditional love extends beyond the court. Kansas Sunflowers player Sherry Baker says of her fellow players, "They just rally around you. They're there for prayers, they're there for food. They come and sit with me during surgeries. They're just a great bunch of women with huge hearts. I definitely don't know what I would do without them in my life." And the spiritual enrichment of the Granny Basketball League's players and fans doesn't end there. Countless communities have benefited through charitable contributions collected for causes ranging from animal and children's protection efforts to community food, medical, and vital supply donations. With the players sharing their competitive focus with such a powerful dedication to giving back to their community, the league, teams, and athletes of Granny Basketball send a very important message along with their generosity. No matter your age, gender, or ability level, everyone can play, everyone can help, and everyone can make a difference. In fact, the first Granny Basketball tournament was itself a fundraising event. In 2005, when her hometown of Lansing, Iowa was beginning the historic preservation of a landmark building, Barb saw her opportunity to jumpstart her 6-on-6 women's basketball revival by organizing a tournament to raise money for the project. Barb didn't get to play at the Iowa State tournament in her younger days, so she named that first tournament the Granny Basketball State Tournament. And Barb's team beat the visiting team from Waterville 23-13. On top of the thrill of victory, the seed of something greater had been planted at that first tournament. Granny Basketball had captured the hearts of the locals and the attention of the media. And from there, the Granny Basketball League took on a life of its own, then spreading from Iowa across the Midwest. Today, new teams continue to join the league from places as far as California and Canada. But Granny Basketball? Why the name? Not every woman above the age of 50 is a grandmother, and even fewer would likely gravitate to the name of Granny anything. But for those with love for the league, their concept of Granny is actually about redefining the image of aging females. A granny is a spitfire, somebody who does not sit in a rocking chair. Or, if she does a lot of other things too, says team captain Diana Seguenza of Cedar Rapids. To me, she's a rebel. Seguenza, a Granny Basketball original, said a granny isn't immune to the pressures of getting older, but she fights for each win with determination, despite it all. So with an eye-catching name, safer rules, and historically accurate dress code, Granny Basketball sets out to create more than just an opportunity for women to exercise. Granny Basketball gives women an opportunity to redefine themselves. Defiant of age, gender, and ability, elements historically restrictive in sports, Granny Basketball makes an athlete out of anyone willing to get out there and try. It is a catalyst for these, quote, women of a certain age to earn and flaunt a new identity of independence, confidence, and contribution to a greater cause. So, how is it played? Granny Basketball's rules are based directly on the 1920s era girls' 6-on-6 basketball rulebook, uniform included. As expected, traditional 6-on-6 women's basketball is played with 6 players from each team present on the court at one time, along with 3 referees. The game consists of 4 8-minute quarters, with a 2-minute break between quarters and a 10-minute break between halves. The court is divided into 3 sections, with 2 forwards and 2 guards on either end, and 2 players in the center zone. Players from each team must play only within their designated zone. This allows for 2 players in alternating zones at all times, removing the need for a full court press or a fast break. Players can hustle, hurry, or scurry into a quick walk, but players are not allowed to run. This not only helps protect players from injury, but it also levels the intensity across players, which can range in age from 50 to 95 and above. Running constitutes a foul. 3 fouls of any kind, and you're out. Jumping is another chief no-no in Granny Basketball, so the first possession is decided by a coin toss rather than a traditional jump ball. Upon possession at any time, players may only hold the ball for up to 5 seconds before they must dribble, pass, or shoot. All players must dribble while traveling across the court, but may only dribble twice before they must pass or shoot the ball. This creates a playstyle that's more strategic than overly independent or confrontational, and promotes communication and sharing throughout the team. Players may pass with a chest or a bounce pass, but all passes must be caught within 3 feet of the boundary lines to prevent risk of tripping, falling, or player collision. Intentional contact between players is not allowed. A 3-inch bubble, ball included, should be maintained around all players to create safe distance from any unintentional contact. As such, defenders may not cage or box in other players. Instead, vertical and horizontal stretching are encouraged to defend against shooting and passing. Defensive players are also not allowed to jump. Players may steal from opponents while they are actively dribbling, intercept passes while they are on the move, and block shots with straight, raised arms and hands. In correlation with the zoned play format, only designated forwards may shoot the ball. If another player shoots a goal, that goal does not count. Legal, above-the-waist, set shots made within the field goal area are worth 2 points, but a 2-handed, underhand granny shot is worth 3 points from anywhere on the floor. Free throws are worth 1 point each, and for these, the shooter may jump. There are a few additional rules that make Granny Basketball a little different. A rule unique to Granny Basketball is the Granny Down rule. If any part of a player besides her shoes makes contact with the ground, all play stops immediately and players call Granny Down. The fallen athlete must stay out of the game for 1 possession to make entirely sure that they are not injured. This also discourages old school players and coaches from coaching fouls. The Granny Basketball League uniforms, which some players call costumes, are based on the historic women's and girls' basketball uniforms of the early 20th century, which were mostly comprised of common athletic wear of the time. School gym uniforms and recreational clothing for other sports and outdoor activities, often sold and advertised in catalogs like Sears. The standard uniform is a white button-down midi blouse tucked into black pleated bloomers that close at the waist and gather below the knee, usually over stockings or socks. The midi blouse is also covered with a collar with a large flap in the back adorned with the player's team number. Traditionally, the midi blouses were intended to prevent any revealing of the player's skin, particularly the upper arms and midriff, and the bloomers had the same intent with showing too much of a player's legs. This rule exists in the Granny Basketball League today, with any unregulated uniforms or wardrobe malfunctions constituting a flesh foul. Just as a comparison, and keep in mind the original regulator's fear of, quote, revealing too much skin, here are the men's basketball uniforms of the same time period. Tall socks, or traditionally stockings, bridge the gap between the knees and the ankles, where a flat leather athletic shoe traditionally finished out the outfit. Granny basketball carries on the stocking tradition with fun, color-coordinated, and patterned knee-high socks that often pay homage to the team's name, theme, or spirit. Players are not allowed to wear jewelry on the court as a safety precaution, but may wear their wedding bands and, of course, any medically necessary devices. Additionally, long fingernails are also a safety concern, which many grannies work around by wearing gloves. Some teams practice, no uniform required, as often as twice a week in 2-hour sessions, while other teams can only meet 1 or 2 times a month. Nearly all teams are at the mercy of gyms that they can borrow or rent, and some players drive 2 to 3 hours to practices if they don't have a team closer to home. League and interleague play is very flexible. Granny Basketball League teams will play anyone, men, women, young, or old, as long as they play by the league's unique rulebook. This rule has lent itself beautifully to the league's history of playing highly entertaining games against unconventional teams and groups for charitable causes, often teams made of first responders, students, or community volunteers. In 2019, Texas Round Rock Rockettes played their local police and fire department to raise money for the local Meals on Wheels program. The game had only 2 stipulations. Everybody plays by Granny basketball rules, and all non-grannies were required a handicap. Firemen had to wear oven mitts on both hands, and police wore handcuffs. Other teams have held similarly spirited games with inventive stipulations. The Texas Old Glories met the Harker Heights Parks and Recreation Department to benefit the Killeen ISD Homeless Awareness and Response Program. The Parks and Rec employees also had to wear an oven mitt on their shooting hand, and, if they showed too much prowess on the court, one on the other hand, too. The oven mitt handicap has become a familiar factor in interleague play, with teams in Topeka, Kansas even enforcing the rule against the visiting Harlem Globetrotters in 2023. Since that first exhibition game in Lansing, Iowa, the Granny Basketball League has thrived on tournaments that bring the many disparate teams together. Areas that have multiple teams, like Iowa, Kansas, and Oklahoma, can gather for tournament play more regularly before the larger, more collective tournaments of the year begin. These smaller tournaments are great ways to benefit local causes, recruit more players, and build more experience in preparation for state and national tournaments later in the year. An Iowa State Granny Basketball Tournament sponsored by the Iowa Senior Games has been held every summer since 2005. In 2017, Granny Basketball became a new event in the Kansas Senior Games held in September after the annual Granny Basketball National Tournament. The first Granny Basketball National Tournament was in 2008 and has since been held every year in various cities from Missouri to Tennessee, usually in the month of August. Unfortunately, COVID canceled the 2020 tournament, but the tournaments have grown in size every year since. At the beginning of the national tournament, all athletes gather in a large circle on the court to commemorate the occasion by singing the Granny Anthem, the league's official song, sung to remember and honor the girls who played 6-on-6 basketball in Iowa from 1898 to 1995. The Cedar Rapids Sizzlers won the 2024 National Granny Basketball Tournament in Kansas City by beating the Harpers Ferry Fireflies in overtime, 51-47. This most recent tournament hosted 330 players aged 50 to 92, representing 28 teams from 10 different states. As players reach excellence and longevity in the league, they are awarded trophies, plaques, and other special designations: Exemplary Team, Iron Woman Award, Most Valuable Granny, and Most Valuable Volunteer. So, what attributes make a great granny? For one, dedication. Pat Connor, age 91, played college basketball at Kansas University at every position, and has now recruited her two daughters, 64-year-old Debbie and 59-year-old Becky, to play with her for the ICT Arrowbells Granny basketball team. When asked what inspires her to play, Pat remembers, "They wouldn't let us play in high school. My goal is to play until I'm 100 and still be on the court." Another quality? A fighting spirit. Players Cheryl Waniger and Lisa Chick also fight for their love of the game. Waniger's painful journey back from a total Achilles tear in 2024 was passionately fueled by her urge to get back on the court with her team. Lisa Chick has been defying expectations her whole life as a Fort Worth community police officer for over 19 years. Now she's still fighting misconceptions of her gender, and now her age, as a proud player for the Cowtown Heifers, one of the more aggressive teams in the league. Plus, Chick said, "The Heifers play hard. Toes get stepped on and bruised, as do ribs and arms. The notion that it's a gentler game for women of a certain age isn't true," she said. "They get a little ornery when we play. They get a little aggressive." And lastly, a willingness to get out there and try something new. Oklahoma Twisters player Nancy Brown is one of many league members who's turning over a new leaf by joining the Grannies, having not played in the past. Describing herself as a warm body for now, she says she's here for a good time. "As long as it's not illegal, immoral, or fattening, I'll try it." And that willingness to try and have a good time is crucial to granny basketball culture. Proof positive lies in the punny names of some granny basketball teams. In 2022, the Route 65 Motorcycle Grannies changed their name to the Indianola Pacemakers, paying perfect homage to their home state and inspiring a self-referential laugh all at once. The late bloomers from Cedar Rapids salute the later years of the team's athletes, as well as the traditional, and silly to some, bloomers uniform the players wear. The Waco 6 Shooters calls back to the gunslinger days of the Old West, as well as the traditional 6-on-6 setup of women's basketball history. Other team names are indicative of the spirit of the league: optimistic, fun, caring, and fully self-aware. The Old Glories, the Hot Flashes, the Rockers, the Gracious Grannies, and the first ever team, the Lansing Great Dames. Then there's the socks. The athletes' bloomer-style shorts leave room between the bottom of the knee and the shoe for a little bit of team spirit and personalization. Many teams wear matching socks that represent their unique flair as a group. The Des Moines Hot Pink Grannies? Well, they wear hot pink, of course. The Lady Redbirds wear all red, unless, of course, they're wearing their bird leg illusion socks. But if you're looking for something a little more exciting, stripes are always in. The Hot Shots, the Model Ts, and the late bloomers all wear horizontal stripes, while the OG Great Dames wore white socks with a single vertical red stripe up the side. But the reigning champs, the Cedar Rapids Sizzlers, have maximum striped swagger in electric green and black tiger striped socks. The Old Glories wear Old Glory, the Kansas Sunflowers wear sunflowers, the Ankeny Honeybees wear bees, the La Crosse Does wear orange, safety orange to be exact. But if plain old socks won't do, You can always custom order your own. A few teams, like the Grantwood Gothics, the Oklahoma Twisters, and the Hot Flashes, sport their own custom socks complete with their team logo printed at the top. One of the most important elements of granny basketball, apart from the socks, of course, is charitable giving. Individual team play is nearly always for charitable causes, and local and national tournaments donate thousands of dollars per year to various causes selected by the host teams. It's estimated that the Granny Basketball League has been able to donate over $200,000 to various charities and causes over the years, including local food pantries and Meals on Wheels programs, the Special Olympics, nursing and hospice services, some specifically for current or former players and their families, domestic violence and homeless youth shelters, animal rescue and rehabilitation, and child and student athletic programs. According to the Granny Basketball League Team Directory, the Viroqua Driftless Dribblers play to help benefit a fellow teammate with cancer, while the Wanamingo Bulldogs play to fund scholarships that allow local girls to attend basketball camps, paying it forward to a future generation of female athletes. The 2024 National Championship Tournament raised over $7,000 for Cross Lines Community Outreach, a nonprofit supporting the Kansas City area, providing people facing poverty with services and opportunities that promote self-sufficiency. The 2023 National Championship Tournament donated all its proceeds and additional match donations to the Iowa Raptor Rescue Project, which protects, rehabilitates, and studies fragile bird populations like the American bald eagle. The 2022 National Championship Tournament benefited a national children's cancer support charity called Noah's Bandage Project, wherein they collected over 38,000 colorful bandages for children with cancer. Because of their charitable giving, the Granny Basketball League received the Iowa Character Pursuing Victory with Honor Award in 2017. Faith Lovejoy, who nominated the league for the award, said, "Granny Basketball is making a difference in the health and well-being of players in their communities. It's because of their passion for basketball, their love for one another, and their support of our communities that I think the Granny Basketball organization should be recognized with this award." Lovejoy's words continue to ring true nearly 8 years later. As the league continues to grow, more and more communities are gaining access to healthy exercise and fellowship opportunities for senior women, a group often isolated in their options for activities, particularly in remote areas where many of these teams begin and flourish. But even in states where the league has already made its mark, it's still a relatively unknown entity. Nobody has ever heard of it, 60-year-old Sunflower team member Martha Long said. "My favorite part is bragging rights. I get to laugh and tell everybody that I play granny basketball." And those current bragging rights can also cast a newly positive light on what's usually a wistful looking back on younger days. I get to be a star now, where I was just a bench warmer in high school. But the heart and soul of the league lives on within the spirit of each player. Long continued, "These gals are wonderful. I think you're not going to be a negative person and join a granny basketball team." Another benefit of the league is that it creates a flexible path for competition and fitness as well. The Granny Basketball League welcomes anyone with any experience level and even invites players who only want to practice but not compete in games and tournaments. Some teams play only a handful of games per year, some end the season with an 0-5 record. But everyone has endless options. Teams can just aim to continue and play again next year. Individual players can aim to be more active next practice, next game, or next season. But most teams aim, year after year, to be more competitive. "I mean, that first year, I don't think we won a game," Sunflower Jean Ralston said. "And this year we're already 2-0. We feel confident right now. We're hoping we'll be a lot more competitive this year." And it's that competitive edge that creates Granny Basketball's X factor. the undeniable thrill of the game, a thrill worth fighting for. As proven by the athletes of the Granny Basketball League, the fearless female athletes who came before them, and their fellow sisters trailblazing in other leagues and sports. The San Diego Splash Sisters, a California women's basketball team with a minimum age of 80, broke the internet in 2017 after a feature from ESPN. Gracie Larson, now a team captain for the Splash, says, "I was 78 years old when I got my first pair of basketball shoes. Growing up, I never got the chance to play. That was before Title IX. So now, as long as I can, I'm going to play." With their fiercely competitive spirit and shared strong heartbeat, CJ, the coach of the Splash, proudly told ESPN, "I don't see any old ladies here. I see basketball players." Marge Carl, another Splash sister, recounts the tragedy she's overcome with losing her daughter, a grief she continues to endure with the support of her fellow players. "This team is where I found myself again." Women like Marge, Gracie, and all the incredible athletes in the Granny Basketball League are proving every day that it's never too late to live your dreams or even just try something new. And their athletic success, contagious joy, and continued longevity are testament to the power of what the Granny Basketball League provides those willing to try: a home, a tribe, and a greater purpose for the unbeatable woman's mind, body, and soul. Oh, and ball, because ball is life. If you are interested in playing, refereeing, coaching, or volunteering with the Granny Basketball League, please visit grannybasketball.com/wanna-play. You can also donate funds online via the website or via check to Granny Basketball League Incorporated, Attention Treasurer, 5314 Northeast 10th Street, Des Moines, Iowa, 50313.